Take Penn State out of the conversation, please. So that's smirk for.
Just harsh. It's so harsh.
Well, you told me in my text yesterday to let's not beat Penn State and Drew Allar while they're down.
Yep.
And I was listening to you for a while, and I woke up this morning and I saw the AP poll, which
and you chose violence. And you chose violence.
And they're at number 7. And I was looking on social and different things. Here's why I say it. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm like any Tom, Dick, Harry can go look up those numbers, right? And I think like there's so many numbers about Allar and what he's not been able to do in big games. There's so many numbers about James Franklin, this program, all of it. You know, what is it, like 4-21 against top 10s? We get the point. The point's there. The stats back it up. I'm looking at this team, and I think we have a responsibility to look at this team this season and what you look for when you're evaluating a Penn State team that had success a year ago, that made the college football playoff, that was dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the improvement? What's going to make them?
I've been saying it all year.
Where are they saying
it all year? Right.
Because they were great at running back last year with Singleton and Allen. They were great on defense with Abdul Carter. I think the defense is still really good. I think they can go toe-to-toe physically. I think that they're a tough football team. I loved their grit, the fight they showed in the fourth quarter. I do. I know I'm like the bang-on Allar guy. I do love his competitiveness. I don't think he's quick, twitchy, fast, any of those things, but somehow you can see he was a 3-sport athlete in high school. He has an instinct about him in the pocket sometimes when he decides to take off and run. He finds there's like this competitive instinct that shows you his athleticism, even though he doesn't look very athletic in his movement skills, okay?
Yep.
But they're not better.
No.
Because they don't have Abdul Carter, and they're not better because it's the same head coach, and they're not better because the same quarterback is doing the same things. And so while I'm not going to sit here and bang on Allar, I ask you in our audience, go watch that game again. Did you see how many times Allar's throwing off his back foot and drifting? Did you see what we were warning you about in terms of faster defensive fronts? And he can't elude and evade. Did you see the time he tried to boot out to the right on the design and they had the linebacker, Tuiato, I think, pardon me for mispronouncing his name, rolling out to his right, and the big physical, strong linebacker changes, not on a dime, but it wasn't the Titanic that, and tracks him down and forces Allar to cut back up. And most importantly, Steve, did you see their inability to get the ball to their playmakers on the perimeter, running away from him? Those type of throws. And it shows up every time. So I was hopeful that maybe it was just early in the season, some of the same problems that we saw on tape, but it's not. And this program, this is playing at home against a quarterback making his 10th start. No matter how talented Dante Moore is, that's a tough spot, bro.
Yeah.
Okay? To go on the road, you get the whiteout, primetime game, night game, Happy Valley. Everything's in your favor. And I got a veteran quarterback who's been through a lot of wars and won a lot of games. And I got a really good defense. And I got an offensive line with veterans. And I got arguably the best backfield in the country. And so when I wake up on Sunday and I watch that, yeah, it was a double overtime game, but Oregon controlled that game, completely controlled that game.
Yeah.
Like completely, man. And to the point where like, what was it? Like 100 and I've got the notes somewhere, but they rushed for like 70 something yards. Right?
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now. Who, Penn State?
Oregon had 424 total yards of offense. Penn State had 276.
Right.
So what's different? So while we talk about Ohio State and Oregon and Miami and Ole Miss and Oklahoma ascending, and hopefully they can kind of hang on until they get their quarterback John Mateer back, and Texas A&M is much more complete and they can win with offense, they can win with defense. And we talk about Indiana looking different, even though they got dragged in the mud against Iowa as expected. They found a way to win. And you talk about Texas and all the talent they have there if they can get Arch right. And they talk about Alabama and the hiccup against Florida State. They weren't prepared. They didn't play to their level, but they've responded. And you talk about Georgia, and Georgia's just going to keep getting better. I'm convinced of it. And Texas Tech is a different animal that we saw. And Tennessee's dangerous. How do they fit in? They don't, in my opinion. So my takeaway is take Penn State out of the conversation. Go ahead.
You take him out of the conversation after they lost to the number 2 team in the country in overtime because of their history. And I think I get it. Listen. Why are you putting? I feel like this is your mind games right here. Everything you've said, I've said before. That's how I felt about this team coming in. But they also are super talented, and they have a deep defense. They have a good coordinator. They have a quarterback who could, if he unlocks it, figure it out and make some plays. Their running game is still outstanding. I still think this is a top 10 team in the country until they go. And again, if they lose to Indiana, that'll be the game for me. And we'll figure it out when we get there. Then we'll see. But you can't just dismiss them because of all their past issues. And that's kind of what I think is going on. So, yeah, I hear you. You're not wrong, and I get it. And if you were asking me right now, do I think Penn State's going to win the national championship? I would say, hell no. Hell no. They're not as good as they were last year. They shouldn't have been ranked this high to begin with. But to say, I'm not ready to write them off yet.
Well, I'm cool with you. Like, I don't care where they rank them. I guess I'm saying, why is Penn State different?
Oh, okay. We're on the same page.
You can rank them there,
page.
and I see all the things. I'm just saying, like, when I'm having a conversation about who's a legitimate national title contender, and I'm talking about all these teams that like can ascend, and I can see the areas where they're weak now but can improve and could be Ohio. Because here's the model, okay? Here's the model. And let me start with this. You got a Devontae Ross, who's a burner, right? Comes in from Troy. And you saw that 35-yard catch, and you could see the speed and the talent and the difference-making ability. But he winds up with like 50 yards in the day, 4 receptions, and 35 of them were on that one catch. They can't get him the ball. Why? Because they don't have a quarterback who can do it. He's just not accurate on throws that require leading receiver trajectory, visualization, anticipation. So that is a massive limitation for a guy who's supposed to be a strength on your football team. And you add his lack of mobility. And it drives me nuts because you go back to 2023 and it's Keandre Lambert-Smith. And I hear reports that James Frank was, addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
Okay, but then he goes on to Auburn and now he's with the Chargers. So that's not addition by subtraction. Maybe it's the quarterback play. And then last year, Harrison Wallace, the third, right?
Yeah.
And Omari Evans. And Evans, I told you 2 weeks ago, had a 53-yard touchdown catch in his first game back after being nicked up for the first couple. And Wallace, after 3 or 4 games, was 4th in the country in receiving yards per catch. Receiving yards per game at Ole Miss. So they're starring, whether it's Lambert-Smith, Wallace, Omari, Evans.
Yeah.
They're starring and making big plays but this year we brought in Pena from Syracuse and we got the Troy kid and Ross. So I don't see the explosiveness. I don't see the ability to win in different ways. They have to win one way.
Yeah, that's true. They have to thread that needle. I hear you. I don't disagree with you. If that's what you're saying, I thought you were like, let's just take him out of college football for this year. Like, let's get him out of the rankings. No, I'm
saying out of taking a team, because here's what happened with Ohio State last year, right? Mm-hmm. This is the example I really wanted to make. And I started this whole thing before I got on the tangent about the weapons. Ohio State last year dropped that game to Oregon.
Yeah.
And we saw a veteran quarterback make a tough decision at the end of the game. They didn't have clock management, but they lost that game. But they slowly got better each and every week. And then they ran into the Michigan buzzsaw that's just their own personal problem, right?
Yeah.
But they got in the college football playoff, and kind of people wanted to write them off a little bit, and it all started to click. And Chip Kelly started to get a little bit more aggressive and change some of his blocking schemes. And defensively, they had already kind of started it, but then now they were excelling with the 3 high safeties. And so, like, the talent was there, and it just took a little bit of time for it to all come together, but it came together at the end. My point in this is, I don't like Penn State has a lot of talent, and Penn State followed this model. Like, they're not stupid on paper. What did Ryan Day do to try to remember? He was trying to save his job last year and take Ohio State to the level that they have the standard and the expectation. He went in. They bought their defense back.
Right.
They paid their guys on free agency by keeping them, right? Then they added Judkins and paid him some money. But they plucked in a couple a weapon and a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But they plucked those guys in and then brought in a new coordinator to change things on the offensive side. Well, Penn State brought in a new coordinator. James Franklin went out and got Jim Knowles from Ohio State. They lost Tom Allen, who's a really good one, but Jim Knowles, some people would say maybe a little bit better at what he does and can provide kind of a fresh look for what they're doing. And they kept their guys.
Yeah.
Their quarter, Allar, didn't leave. And some people thought he could have been maybe a second-round pick last year. Allar didn't leave. The running backs didn't leave. And they went and plucked, instead of running back like Ohio State did, they went and plucked new wide receivers, hoping that would solve the problem. And I just told you, it didn't, and it doesn't, and it hasn't.